Good morning, good afternoon for the people on the East Coast and in Europe. My name is Murat. I'm a principal at Cota Capital. I'm here with Laurent Gil as part of Cota Access webinar series, where we aim to provide insights from entrepreneurs that we work with at Cota Capital. Laurent is a co-founder and chief product officer at a company in our portfolio called Cast AI, and we're here today to talk about the remarkable growth in the use of cloud services and the current market dynamics and how Cast AI helps customers optimize their cloud spending. Laurent, welcome.
Thank you, Murat. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. So I really enjoy this next 30 minutes.
Likewise. Super excited about it. Maybe to get started, talk a little bit about Cast AI for us and how did the idea come about? What was the inflection point in the industry that resulted in the problem that Cast solves today? And what was the thought process for you to be part of the founding team at Cast?
Yeah, Murat, can you go to the first slide? I have a great example of what it is we do. Yeah, thank you. So what we do is very simple. We show you how much you spend on a cloud provider, and then we reduce it. It's automatic, it's made in minutes, it's for any cloud native application. So think of any applications that runs on AWS, Google, or Azure that use containers. Containers equal cloud native for the most part. The word containers, you may have heard instead the word Kubernetes. It's all the same thing. So in minutes, our AI engine is connecting to all your cloud native applications. It's going to tell you this is how much you spend right now at this minute. It's a real-time product. And then it will say, hey, you have a potential of savings of 50, 60%. Click this button to reduce your cost. And the minute you do this, you have a set of automation that kicks in that will effectively analyze your utilization of all your compute resource and right-size this in real time. That's what we do. The good thing of this is it only costs you a fraction of your savings. So I love to speak about this with my clients or my users.
Right.
You will save 100, it will cost you 10. It's great. It's a great return of investment. It's a great ROI selling in that case. And then the long-term benefit and the reason why our users love the product is we automate everything. We automate entirely the infrastructure management for all of these cloud native applications. The result we bring is substantial. I mean, think about this. On average, we're about 45 customers we started to sell a year ago. So on average, we save 65% of our customers' cost for compute. That's substantial for any company, small and large.
And that's a tangible, real savings. Actually, you can show to everybody.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, this is just some of the customers. The reason why I show this because it kind of gives you the sense there are some very small ones, like small startups, but there are some extremely large players like Tata in India, or Iterable, or ShareChat. ShareChat is probably the largest TikTok equivalent in Southeast Asia. OpenX, the largest advertising exchange in the planet, based in the US East Coast. So small and large companies alike, the impact is very, very similar to them. Then on the next slide, I'll show you an example of it so you see how it looks like. So this is actually a customer we onboarded in April. And you see, this is the month of April, yeah, March and April. You see that over a few days, that client went from $350 a month, a day, so $350 a day of cost, cloud cost, to about 120. It took them 3 days to get there. It's the same application. It works the exact same way, it has the same performance. What happened is we analyzed there was a bunch of things they didn't need. So they were using about 287 CPUs before we onboarded them. After that, they started to use only 171 CPUs. That's because the others, they were not using them. They were paying for it, but they were not using them. Just doing this eliminated 2/3 of their cost. And then a bunch of other things went to the last 65%. If you go to the next slide, there is one other thing that is spectacular when we speak to our customers, is I took a screenshot of the months of December and January. Today, these clients spend about $500 per day. They are absolutely and completely optimized at 99%. And what this means is this application went from $120 per day of optimized cost to 5x that number. The application is 5 times bigger between April and January. And that's the trend we see in almost all our customers. So think of this, Murat. What we do really is the following. We give confidence that whatever you spend on your cloud provider is the right amount. It's nothing less, but it's also nothing more. It's the right amount. And we do this thing in real time, in split seconds. So in split seconds, the entire cycle run, and the AI engine says, am I provisioned on the right amount of machines? If no, I add more. If yes, I stay here. If I have too many, I reduce them. And I do this very, very fast. That confidence to the DevOps engineer that what they use is the right amount, make them want to do more of it. And that's what we see with our clients. On average, so this is just one application, on average with our customer, if we do nothing, meaning the organic growth from 1 month to another is 10% per month, compounded. So it's 150% per year. So every year you're gonna double the size of the application, more than double the size of the application, just because we give that confidence. That's the average for our 45 customers.
On this topic, actually, Laurent, we got a question from the audience. I think this is the right time to probably raise this question. The question is around 65% of savings that you kind of referenced. How long does it take to achieve that? And what is actually being saved? How do you do it?
Yeah. That's a great question. So there are a few strategies that the engine has been trained on. First one is, first, how long it takes? It's instant. Meaning the moment you give the AI engine a read and write access, the engine automatically kicks in. Of course, you as a user, you can decide how aggressive you want the engine to be. You can make it slow, make it fast. You can make it more creative or less creative. So the DevOps person becomes more of the analyst that decide how you want the style of this to be managed. But it's a real-time engine, so it takes a few seconds, a few minutes to get there. The way the strategy of optimization are the following. So the first one is we analyze in real time how many CPUs and memory, so how many compute the application is requesting to run. That's the number that containers are is very easy to get from containers. That's why we do that for cloud native application. So we analyze in real time, you need 100 CPUs. Every few seconds that will change. But right now you need 100 CPUs. And then we look at, okay, great, how many CPUs are you provisioned on? 150, great. Which one can I delete? Or which one can I turn off? Which machine are not that well used, so I can transfer containers of that machine to another one, and therefore emptying machines that were not very well used in the first place. In the industry, we call this bin packing, right? We are packing bins in more efficient columns so that we empty columns that were not greatly used so far. Once the column is empty, that's a VM, we eliminate that. We eliminate that machine. So that's number one. What you see on screen is exactly is that example. But before I speak to that one, let me tell you the other strategy, because you see there are many others, and they're all compounded effect to each other. I'll give you another one. There are about 600 different type of compute on Amazon. Replaced by Google, it's the same thing. About 400 to 600 different type of machines available. Some have GPUs, others have more memories, they may have different CPUs, so there's a lot of combination like this. Which one do you select as a developer? I have no idea. I'll select the one that I know. It's called M5, because I know M5 very well. That's how it works, right? That's how humans handle this. But we do something different. We tell the engine, why don't you tell me which are the best machine to select within the 600. And by the way, since you can tell me that, give me the most cost-effective one out of the 600. And that's the second thing the engine does. It says, well, maybe you were using a machine called M5 on Amazon. Hey, a C5A is actually 10% cheaper. Or a spot instance is actually 70% cheaper. And I analyze all your application, they actually can run on spot instance, but not all of them, and not all your containers. A portion will, the other one will stay on regular on-demand compute. That's what the engine does. It is responsible for about 25% savings. Right sizing is 40%, roughly, and selecting better machines is another 25%, totally 65 on average. What you see on screen here is the reason why what we do and the use of automation is so powerful. So what you see on screen is 24 hours of utilization for a very large application in Southeast Asia. This is typical of a SaaS business, meaning at night, you see it starts at 2 a.m. or midnight. At night, you're sleeping, therefore you're not using the product. Think of Salesforce, right? You may not use Salesforce when you're sleeping at night, or a chatting business. You may not use them because you're sleeping. So the utilization during the night is very low. Then you wake up, you start to use it. Increase until the end of the day, then you go back to sleep and you start to stop using it. This is typical of a human-driven type of application. Think of all the SaaS business in the planet follow that trend. Their customers are not using their product when they're sleeping most of the time. They're using it during the day most of the time. So the utilization is like this. Traditionally, how would DevOps do that? I simplify. They will say, oh, maximum utilization today, or on average, is about 20,000 CPUs. Great. I'll provision 20,000 CPUs because I know that's the maximum I will need today. That's what humans do, right? That's how we operate. My number one goal is make sure this works, so I will provision the maximum I need because now I know I can rest and be calm. It will always work. I will never be above that. But if you do this, you actually have a massive overspending because during the night, you don't need these 20,000. You only need once or twice during the day. And during the morning, it's again the same thing. What you need to do, and what the engine we built has been trained, is to follow the curve of utilization and to do it very, very fast. So in the morning, we say, oh, you need only 1,000 CPUs. Great, I'll give you 1,000. Goes up and up. You see here at 4 a.m., you have a big spike from, I think, 5,000 to a bit more than 10,000 machines. So you're doubling the size of the application within 5 minutes. The engine says, great, I will give you that because you need it. And the impact is what you may see on screen. The yellow line above, the green line, is actually how many CPUs our engine is providing.
So the closer that line to the green line is actually the higher your savings versus,
exactly
generic provision.
That's exactly how it works. And before they use us, they were the difference between before and after for them is 40% cost savings based on this impact of following the curve of utilization for this app. And another thing you can see here is it's impossible for humans to do it by hand. So there's no secret. It's not like, oh, they were not very good at managing it. It's impossible to manage this. There are some systems that can scale up and down on the cloud provider. After all, that's the reason why the cloud provider existed in the first place. But they are not following the curve of utilization the way we have trained our engine to follow. And think of this as, it's not just, oh, I need to reduce from 1,000 to 50. It's which one can I reduce? And by the way, you have a few minutes because that's all you have. You see this application is chatty, goes up and down very quickly. Follow the global trend, but it goes up and down very quickly. You have to follow that curve as fast as you can. And that's the beauty of using automation.
Right.
That's how we train our thing.
There are a lot of specific questions around how the product works, but I'll pick one I think probably seems like a common theme. So aside from the compute optimization, is there any other platform or workloads that this is applicable to, for example, storage, or we're just limited to compute optimization at the moment?
Oh, it's a great question, Murat. So without saying too much of the roadmap, but yeah, you can imagine what's number one cost. Well, it's by far CPU and memory. It's usually for cloud native application, that's usually 80%. 10% is storage, and then the rest is shared between some services and network. So yeah, the next one is storage. But it's the same thing, right? You provision an SSD, a hard disk of 1 tera, you just need half of it, but you are paying for 1 tera.
If you were to, sorry to interrupt, if you were to give a number around, what is, if you were to break down the overall cloud spending across, compute and storage and everything else, like what is the rough breakdown right now for the companies that you're seeing in the field?
So it's roughly half and half. Half of your cloud bill usually is linked to running applications. So that includes CPU, memory, storage, and egress. The other half is for services around it, such as database, CDN, and all the other cool things you can buy from AWS, Google, and Azure. So we cater to the half of your cloud bill. And within half of your cloud bill, the product we delivered last year is 80% of that, which is CPU and memory. The other 10 and 10 is shared between storage and network. Stay tuned, not in the very, very distant future. Oh, sorry, very, very close future for some really nice announcement about it.
That's great. I think you should start talking about a little bit. We know cloud spending is increasing remarkably, and that kind of poses a situational risk for companies in terms of how to manage their costs. And we've been in this environment in the past 12 months, which is completely different than how it was 2 years prior. So how is your dialogue with customers and kind of stakeholders of the industry change over the course of 12 months? What are they telling you? What are their priorities are? Overall, what keeps them awake during the night?
So that's very interesting because we have this discussion all the time. A year ago, almost everybody is aware of the cloud cost and the fact that it only goes in one direction, which is up. But nobody does anything about it. That changed a lot in 2022. And I call that the COVID hangover. So here's what happened. And you can read this everywhere, right? 2020, 2021 crisis. Very hard for you to run your own data center. You may not know if your team will be able to go there. Okay, great. Enterprises start to move everything they could into the cloud. So many news about this, and they moved in a hurry, meaning they cut corners because their number one request is it must run, and we're in crisis. Use the cloud, whatever you can, just use it. We saw a lot of this in 2020 and 2021. Then in 2022, especially the December period, Q4, two things happen at the same time. One is, oh my God, the costs increased a lot and there is inflation. That means it may increase more, even without adding anything. Google was the first one who increased price on storage. The others are thinking about it. So inflation comes, meaning you have a pressure on your cost, even if you don't increase the size. Second thing is, your customers, so the customers of our customers, are asking for price cut. Well, there is a recession coming. It may come, it may not come. It doesn't matter. Almost everybody, including ourselves, are going back to our supplier and say, I really like you guys, but you need to do something about this bill. That's what the COVID hangover come from. I call it the perfect storm, where on one side, you have a class of asset that is extremely necessary and critical for your company that is increasing dramatically in cost. You have an inflation pressure that says, well, it may increase even more. And then you have your customer that says, you have to reduce your price. So these three things goes against each other dramatically. And this is where optimization comes as a very often extremely important topic with organizations that come to us. And it's interesting to see. So it comes from the CFO, then goes to the CTO very, very fast. And then the CTO say, okay, who is my team is in charge of that thing? And usually that goes to the DevOps manager, because they are the one managing infrastructure. So it goes down very fast. And then these guys are the one typically talking to us. That's what's happening.
I think that's spot on. I think you start talking about it, but I got another question from audience, I think, related to this topic I think direction that you are going. Kind of when you think about the hyperscalers, three big ones, what is your view on how do they think about the cloud cost optimization? Because when you think about it, it's a double-edged sword for them. Do you think they care about the cloud cost optimization? Or are there any partnerships, they can forge with the players like yourself?
They care. Believe me, they care, because that question of the enterprise goes to them first, right? Hey, dear AWS or dear Google, help me there. Yeah, you have to help me. So they care. It's new. They always care, but it was never very important. Now they care, and it's important. So it goes to them very, very often. Problem is, one, they don't have the tools. And the second one is they're very conflicted. Then it's because they are very conflicted that they don't have the tools. So very conflicted means the following. Imagine yourself, Murat, you have an app on, let's say, on Azure, and you're spending a few $1,000s a month. It's too much for you. So what do? Well, you call your Azure sales rep, the one who sold you this really cool product, and you tell him, well, or you tell her, hey, can you do something, please? Like, it's too much. I can't afford this anymore. Well, the problem is you're asking the person who makes money based on the revenue you bring to her to reduce your cost, and that's the conflict. So she will have a lot of empathy, or he will have a lot of empathy, because we are all human and we understand that we are not in normal times. But then when that person turns around to her management, the management says, are you crazy? What do you mean? You want to make less commission? You want to miss your target? So that's the conflict. It's getting better now, especially when you go to the enterprise side of the cloud providers. Like, they know they have to do something, and they have to side with the client. Some are siding with them better than others, but that trend is happening now. The problem is they still don't have the tools, and that's where we come in. So a lot of these guys go to us and say, hey, this is my client, blah, blah, blah. This is my client, Murat. Can you do something for him, and see how you can help him manage this better than the normal tools that we have? So that's happening now. Sometimes they're a little bit shy, but we see a lot of really cool companies that are coming to us based on that discussion. There's another thing that the cloud providers are very interested in, and that is how the conflict of interest is eliminated, is the following. Well, if I reduce the cost of CPU and memory, that means you have more budget now. So imagine you, Murat, you had this super app, you wanted to use some AI engine, but you could not afford to use the AI as a service from Google. Well, if I reduce your cost by 50%, so it's 1,000, now it's 500, that means you have $500 to use to do the thing you wanted to do but couldn't afford to do it. And so that's where the cloud provider are winning that trend, is this. We start to see, well, I'm freeing up your budget for things you didn't need anyway. So it doesn't do anything to your app. It's the same app, it works the exact same way. We're paying for it without using it. Right. Well, now you have this huge amount of budget that you can use to do the thing you wanted to but could not. So this is a third consequence we start to see. It's very popular with a hyperscaler to have these kind of discussions.
I think on that topic, there are a couple of questions from the audience that talks about, obviously we're aware of the kind of growth in the cloud spending, incredible increasing 20% every year. Right now, I think more than $500 billion in public spending. Given that background, do you kind of anticipate a reversal in the trend of moving to cloud? Because cost is right now is, out of control?
No,
Or do you think this trend is going to continue, but at a slower pace?
I don't think it will stop, and I think it will continue at an accelerated pace. There is a slide, I don't know if you can find it, that has the market sizing for cloud for hyperscalers. It's very interesting
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was made by an analyst. If you can put it on screen, you'll see what they say. I can describe it as you put it. So, oh, it's coming. Cool. So right now, the size of the hyperscaler, so what we call the AWS, Google, and Azure, excluding all the SaaS business. So I don't count Salesforce into that, or Zoom, or any of this. So purely the infrastructure as a service of the cloud provider. The market is about 157 billion. It was actually a leak from almost all the three leak how much they were making in cloud. So it's not public, but it became public by the leaks. So it's 157 billion between 2021 and 2022. And then this analyst made three scenarios. I'll tell you what the scenarios are. So the conservative scenario is everything stays the same, meaning about 25% of enterprises move to the cloud. That number will increase to 50. The rest will not move to the cloud. Just by doing this, the market goes from 157 to 600 billion, because they factor in the fact that price increase, and when you move to the cloud, you do that to use more services. So you're going to use your database as a service that was not yet in the cloud, but suddenly becomes part of the cloud as a service. So, okay, so 600 billion is a conservative scenario. That's 4x already. And then they made a base scenario and a bullish scenario. I'm in the bullish side. Bullish scenario is the following. We don't know how many enterprises move to the cloud, but they assume, okay, what about if it's 15%? Only 1/5. So 15% of enterprises move to the cloud, and the cloud is unstoppable, which means 75% of the enterprises will be on the cloud over 10 years. So you go from 15% to 75%. Mechanically, you apply the same growth. This is a 10 trillion market size. Will not be only 3 cloud providers, right? You'll have 7, 8, 9, maybe 20 of them, because that's a huge industry. I mean, it's the size of a country, GDP at that time. This is where that can come. And it's not that, oh, the entire world is going to the cloud 200 times more. This scenario is 75% of enterprises are going to move to the cloud from 15% in the next 10 years. Then the base scenario is in average of in between these two things. So you have the extreme things. And my mind is the extreme things is not extreme, because that's what we see with our client. Remember, I told you, organically, you do nothing with the app, it grows by 10%, month by month.
Right.
Then you add to this the fact that you're going to put more apps into it. That's where the bullish scenario comes in. And you see why I'm in agreement with that one is for the following reason. We give confidence. Whenever you have a commodity, something that becomes a commodity with confidence, let's say you are in 1900, you buy a Model T car from Ford. Why do you buy it? It's inexpensive, it works very well, and it's always black. That's the Model T. Well, the car industry started at that moment. Why? Because you start to have a commodity that you are very confident it will help you in your daily life. The same thing in my mind is for the cloud, and we see this with our client. If you give confidence that whatever you pay is always the right amount, you know exactly why, and you know a real-time efficiency of utilization of what you have, then the first thing you do is you call your boss, you call your CTO, your manager, and you say, all these things that we had on-prem that was working but not working well, and we don't really know what they do. Well, I have an idea. Let's move them to the cloud, because the minute we do this, it will be the most cost-effective use of resources, because I know, because it's written on my screen, that the efficiency is close to 100%. That's why I'm really thinking of something that looks like more the bullish scenario. We're the
Yeah.
very beginning of this. I mean, think of this is a 100x increase. Oh, that's weird. A bit less than 100, 50 or 60 times increase of an industry that we all think is already enormous, that is coming. So look at ChatGPT, that they use millions of CPUs and they only have 20 million users. What happened when they have 1 billion users or 6 billion users? That's where we come.
Right,
This is right. This is the excitement.
No, Laura, you can talk about this topic probably for hours with you. But I think you started giving kind of glimpses into the future a little bit, how you think about the cloud spending and where it's going. Are there anything else that you think people should be on the lookout for in the next 3 to 5 years, besides the fact that like undoubtedly it's going to grow?
Yeah, I think it's automation. Is the realization that, yeah, there are some really cool automation or automated engines that makes your life simpler and easier. The one we have is for infrastructure. The next one we will have is for security. The same thing, right? If you want to be secure, do you want a report that tells you how many critical vulnerabilities you have? Or do you want an engine that will close these gaps automatically in a few seconds? Of course, you want the automation. So I think automation is where it's going. And automation means you use sophisticated engines that do things for you. And that's probably where the AI becomes, leaves the hype and becomes reality. We see that many times now. So I think that's one of the trends that will happen. And I love ChatGPT because it goes exactly in that direction. I mean, think about this. AI was boring a few months ago, and then in October or November they start to appear, and everybody is excited because you can write your essay in a few seconds on ChatGPT. The same thing for infrastructure. Yeah, how cool it is that we follow the utilization curve. So give you confidence that you can go ahead and use it, because it will always be efficient in their use, or because it will always be secure, because you will use the same engine to secure your things instead of, in addition to optimizing it. So I think that's where the trend goes. And then a member of the audience.
That's great.
Yeah.
Laura, and I know we're kind of past a couple of minutes, so I wanna be respectful of everybody's time. But
one thing, Murat,
yep.
just to add, member of the audience, if you have any issues with your cloud cost, hit me up or hit Murat. I would love to help you guys. It's a really good time to be in that industry and to help you use your cloud. So thank you, Murat.
Laurent, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I think we're very excited to partner with you and everyone at Cast in your journey. And thanks everybody. I have a disclaimer that I need to show. Thanks everybody for joining and participating today, and we all look forward to seeing you in the future Code Access events. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.